Establishment at Alex Mall will host the ASI Thought Laboratory, featuring former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan as the keynote speaker. The topic of the day, transforming South Africa. What does it mean to you? This relates to the unfolding events at advisory firms like KPMG and McKinsey and how these entities can be used to achieve inclusive growth. Anthony Govender is the Chief Executive Officer at ASI. It's also an advisory business, that is ASI, and he joins us in studio. Good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Leanne. Thank you for having me.
So you're in the very business that's under the spotlight at the moment. I mean, every day we open up the newspaper and another revelation has been made in the financial services and advice auditing industry. What are you, according to you, has gone wrong in this sector?
I think Leanne, the major problem in our sector is that there's a lack of transparency and a lack of commitment to transforming the industry. And when I say a lack of transparency, the KPMG saga is a classic example of that. We would not have the problems that we have in South Africa. Our economy would have not fallen as it did had it not been for companies like KPMG. I think the question that South Africans need to be asking themselves is, how do we get restitution from organizations like this? Bear in mind that this has affected the South African taxpayer. It has affected the public, and it's affected the economy across the board. So we need to ask ourselves, how do we make this right?
Yeah, which is a big issue. And when you say that at the end of the day, I am going to be responsible, you are going to be responsible, and everybody watching is going to be responsible, because these are the taxpayers of South Africa, and for all of the misdoings of these companies, the onus is going to lie on us. Now, I mean, that is a different angle to look at it completely.
100%.
But the question, again, I suppose I just need to emphasize, how did we get here? Obviously, you talk about transparency, it's not transparent enough, but this is a very bad place and stage to be in.
There is a silver lining to all of this, I must just put out. Although South Africa is in a very dark place at the moment, I think how we got to this point is that the intentions of a number of different stakeholders in the industry has not been honourable. The finger has been pointed at state, and I think we can't just point the finger at state alone. When privately held institutions corrupt the moral fibre of business in South Africa, that's where the problem has actually emanated from. We've allowed money to control and influence the decisions that we've made in business, and this is where, this is really the cause of the problems in South Africa. Yeah. When we allow money to corrupt the moral fibre of society, to corrupt the ethics and principles that business should actually operate by in South Africa, we don't really have a business community left.
It's incredible that it's not anything new. What we're seeing now with KPMG, with McKinsey, it's not necessarily something new. It's been around, perhaps it's just been hidden quite well, and this time it's now being unveiled at a very fast rate. Shouldn't these already have been in place, these measures to try and avoid something like this happening? It's not something new that suddenly developed overnight.
I agree, Leanne. I mean, this is not an issue, a new issue to South Africa. If you look at the Fidentia scandal, we had the Alexandra Forbes scandal, where there was about just over 300 million rand fine that was paid to the regulator at the time, and now KPMG. I think the problem that we have as South Africans, we've grown a tolerance to corrupt business practice in South Africa, and I'm urging South Africans to say that we have a zero tolerance to corrupt business. We refuse to deal with corrupt business in the country. Why do we still allow these businesses to operate in this economy? We should simply banish them from operating in our country.
Yeah.
You can't compromise the integrity standards in this industry and still expect to operate here. To simply take the view, well, we'll pay a fine and get away with it, isn't fair to South Africa.
No. Not at all. And it does, and perhaps I use a big cliche where it takes two to tango, and there are always fingers being pointed at government, but if it wasn't for the private sector getting involved with government and colluding in these deals, this wouldn't be happening. So it is a two-way game that we need to look at, and the private sector cannot get away with this, with just paying a fine. There's got to be something more severe. So this is, honestly, I mean, that was the background to what's happening here. Now you've got former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan speaking. Amazingly, this would be the time that he'd been preparing for a midterm budget in the olden days. Not so much now. Why him? Why did you feel he was the right guy to address?
He's a great son of the South African soil, and he's a leader that we respect, the business community respects in South Africa, and also someone that I believe has the right intellectual vision and for the country. He has an optimistic view of where the country should be over the next decade. And I'm of the opinion that he's one of the leaders that we should actually have back in ministry.
Yeah. Your choice of venue is also very interesting. At the Alex Mall, it's right next to Sandton, which is the financial capital. It's where all these businesses are operating. And so going next to it, why? What was the rationale behind all of this?
You asked the question, how did we get to this point? And I think we're trying to go against the grain of the conventional players of the financial advisory industry. We're hosting it in Alexandra because it's probably a site that best represents the Gini coefficient in our country, Sandton being the richest square mile in Africa, and Alexandra Township being one of the more economically marginalized communities in the country. And there are several other townships like this in South Africa. And we want to bring awareness to the economy, to the financial services industry in particular, to say that South Africa has problems, and these are real issues affecting real people. And it's important that the industry as a whole take an active part in making a difference to those societies.
Yeah. So anybody want to pretty much so get involved in this? Can they? Is it an open dialogue?
It is very much an open dialogue. I must say, Leanne, that we have been oversubscribed for the event. So we did extend the capacity of the venue by a further 20%, but we are oversubscribed at this stage. But we are going to be hosting a very similar event going into March of next year.
Excellent.
And we'll certainly be talking to you about that as well.
Good, I'm glad. So we can give out those details. So just in 30 seconds, because that's when we go to the news, what are you hoping to achieve out of these conversations?
I'm hoping to achieve thought leadership, and I'm hoping to achieve the business community leaving with ideas on how we could actively contribute to transforming the South African economy. We can't do this by ourselves as ASI. We need the business community in South Africa to get behind this, and we need corporate South Africa to stand together to make a difference.
Anthony Govender, been a pleasure speaking to you. Good luck for today. Please be in touch with us for March so that whoever wasn't able to make it to this one will be able to attend the next one. Anthony is the Chief Executive Officer at ASI, and the topic is Transforming SA. What does it mean to you? That's the conversation that's happening at Alex Mall. All right, so it's